Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel,
And I'm Lena.
where we're talking about
We just talk mad shift.
mad shift, yeah, like how we got there. So today we kind of want to touch on the topic of triggers and self-awareness and how to know when you're triggered and kind of how to respond to those things.
Yeah.
Because I really feel like that's another layer to being self-aware.
Yeah, definitely. And I think first we can even just define like what is a trigger, right? Because
Yeah.
that's such a hot word right now. We all talk about like, I'm triggered, you're triggering me. But what really is a trigger?
And there's different types of triggers,
Yep.
you know?
Specifically like an emotional trigger. And that's
Yeah.
when, or a mental health trigger, when things, memories, objects, situations that can spark intense negative emotions.
Yeah.
And it's that change in emotion that can be really abrupt and really just feel more severe than what the trigger would logically call for.
Yeah. And self-awareness, I think, is like trying to understand when you're triggered, and being able to respond rather than react to it.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. And one of the things that came for me more recently was understanding how not to allow previous, hurts and experiences amplify or multiply the feeling that I'm having with this current situation. So in other words, every time I'm being triggered, I feel like I'm taking old stories and old hurts and attaching them to how I feel now, which is why I feel like sometimes people are like, well, why are you so angry about this thing? It's not even that big of a deal. But for me, it's more than just what's happening right now. And being aware of that is what the self-awareness is.
Yeah. I mean, like a biggest example I think that everybody can relate to or have been with someone who this happens to is like if you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off, right? And immediately you just go into a rage. You can just go right into a rage because what are you feeling? You feel disrespected. You make a whole story about how this person
Sure.
doesn't see you. They don't care about you. They think that you're insignificant.
Yeah.
They're pushing their way in. And in reality, it's more likely that they had no idea you were there. They didn't knowingly do it.
Yeah.
And they don't know who you are, what you're about, none of that.
Yeah.
But we will automatically attach this extreme amount of rage to something really that's benign and go into a whole story about it.
Yeah, because it's one of those unprocessed emotions that we may carry.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess the first step is like recognizing that you are triggered, right?
Yeah.
So
It's like when the shift hits the fan.
yeah. So for you, when is it like, how are you able to step into awareness and go, okay, I'm being triggered right now, and then taking the next step of what's your next step once you realize that you're triggered?
I mean, for me personally, the way that I've learned to do it, and it was through a lot of practice and a lot of work, but what I noticed is I start to tune into my body because I can feel that there's a reaction literally in my body, whether it's my face gets really hot, my stomach, starts to hurt, or I can feel myself contract. For me, that's something's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can recognize first that something's happening in my body. And then I try to figure out like what is happening. And let's say it's somebody cut me off.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to recognize that, okay, I'm having an emotional, physical reaction to what's happening. And I need to like stop and try to recognize what is it. And then, move into a place of allowing the feeling to be there, right? Not trying to like scream it out, reach for something, like go straight into a reaction, is just really allow the emotion to be there. And I use my breath to do that, right? And I recognize that it's there. Oh, here's anger. And then really allow anger to be there. And then I start to ask myself, like, what is this really about? That's the inquiry. What is going on here? And once I can kind of get to a place where I'm like, okay, what is going on here? I'm feeling super mad that somebody cut me off and I'm feeling disrespected.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling not seen. Maybe I'm feeling unsafe, whatever it is. once I can do an inquiry on that, then I start to ask that part of myself, like, what do you need right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is a RAIN method. It's taught by Tara Brach, and it's recognizing, allowing, investigating, and then nurturing.
Mm.
So when I ask that part of myself, what do you need? Then I start to do that for myself,
Mm.
you know, and it can be different for everybody. And in that moment, it may just be like, you need to breathe, or maybe you need to pull over, or maybe put some music on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What is it that I need in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
And start to take care of myself in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a method that's really worked pretty well for me. And then, later when it's a safe time to do so, I can, maybe when I get home or when I'm just before I'm going to bed or something, I can recall that and be like, really, what was that? What was that? What was that really about? And really start to bring like a deeper nurturing to that part,
Mm.
because it's probably a very old feeling,
Yeah.
because adult Lena knows that my best response is not to react and chase this person down the road and
Mm-hmm.
start screaming at them. But little Lena, who may have felt unseen, unheard, um, may not be reacting so with awareness.
And you still need to process that emotion, like
Yeah.
necessarily shutting down what's happening with the road rage in that moment. I think there's a difference, not necessarily to repress what's happening and what you're feeling, but to understand it
Yeah.
with clarity,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the shift into the, self-awareness part of it. But, that part I touched on a little bit more, I think being able to remove myself, because in the situation when it's happening, say somebody cut you off, right? It's automatic. That's an anger trigger for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I become enraged. And so the first thing is like, okay, well, you're feeling disrespected and all those things. And so for me, recognizing that I'm triggered, boom, that's number one. Second thing would be, like you talked about, breath awareness, and now understanding that I can activate a parasympathetic breath where I can breathe through my nose calmly and calm that myself down. But also, I think that the next layer that I've tried to attach to that is just then in the moment, because sometimes I'm pretty good at afterwards trying to process things, but I think the practice and the mastery for me in emotional regulation is to, in that specific moment while it's happening, try to understand how I am multiplying and amplifying previous hurts into this feeling
Oh yeah.
and right now. And if I can do that, I feel it's a lot easier for me to step away from a position of neutrality and go, all right, I'm really angry right now, but not really at this one dude, whoever just cut me off. I've got a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on, and I'm transference. There's a transference of negative energy that I'm putting onto this person and multiplying. I've literally said it to myself. This person does not want any part of what I have built up in me, and the fact that I'm transferring and multiplying and amplifying all those feelings is a definite red flag for me that I'm holding on to unprocessed emotions.
Yeah. And I think what you're describing too, that it sounds like you're able to go into the observer state,
Mm.
where you can step away from the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Once you kind of see and you're recognizing what's going on, is you're cultivating that observer
Mm-hmm.
who's then seeing the whole picture,
Mm-hmm.
who the observer is always in a more neutral place than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And then being able to be response able,
Mm-hmm.
right, is being able to see like, oh, I feel what's going on here. It's okay for that to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But I also would like to choose a different response.
Yeah, I like the rain concept but I feel the part that I'm speaking to has to happen first for me, because I
Mhm.
do want to start all the nurturing um but the biggest thing for me is in the moments, because I'm constantly,
In
ADHD
motion.
in motion, and I
Mhm.
feel like I'm always activated. It's really hard to grasp to, like, oh, I've got to switch gears
Yeah.
and react from a position, or respond from a position of neutrality,
Yeah.
and not attaching my previous hurts to what's happening right now. And I think that's the biggest part for me, that's kind of shifted
Yeah.
some more awareness with even current things that are happening now.
You know what I think is really beautiful too is that, and one thing I've always really ascribe to is that your triggers are literally your treasures.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
said that a lot. Yeah.
they are the things that point you to the places where you're not free.
Mm-hmm.
And so that person cutting you off is actually giving you a big gift in some
Mm-hmm.
way without, it doesn't feel like that in the moment, but they're giving you an ability to see where you're not free.
Yeah.
And
So true.
yeah, and so if you can go in maybe at a later time, you know, when you're able to calm your nervous system and really be like, what is that about? And you can go a little bit deeper and you can start to retrieve those parts of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. You're really trying to tap into that feeling of, you know, staying neutral and not not getting, you know, just upset and because when we start to get angry, it's just it's I know how to say, like, it's the anger emotion just doesn't really provide any sort of, you know, there's no fruit there.
No.
Because that's not neutrality, and we're multiplying, and we can't come from a position of like
Power.
Yeah, because we're essentially giving our power to the other person.
Oh, yeah.
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 So I think, at least for me, just trying to find that even keel, try to step back a little bit and stop trying to be so reactive and having the things to happen instantaneously. You know,
Yeah.
you just want things to happen now. Got to fix things now.
Yeah.
Letting go of that, the
Yeah.
outcome of that.
Yeah. And, you know, if you can get to the point where you're like, oh, here I am, I'm really angry right
Yeah.
now. And you come from a point of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, interesting. I'm really pissed right now. Like this guy has like just totally thrown me into a reaction,
Mm-hmm.
a bodily reaction, an emotional reaction. And that's really interesting, you know, and it can incite this curiosity and this discovery into what's really there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the anger is such a big protector of other emotions.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the emotion that's really there? And that gives you an opportunity to go deeper and to see, like, what am I really upset about?
Mm-hmm.
And is it that I'm disempowered? Is it that I'm not seen? Whatever that is, you have an opportunity because it's been ignited in you
Yeah.
to go and look at that and be with it, you know, and to become more self-aware, you know. And once you start to become self-aware on those issues, the next time somebody starts cutting you off, it's just less of a bodily reaction because you've started to heal those parts of yourself or bring those parts of yourself home.
Yeah.
And so you become less triggerable over time. But every time you're triggered, there's your opportunity.
Yeah.
Like there's a signpost.
Yeah.
Go see what's down that. You know, what's really down that. That guy doesn't know who you are. He doesn't care. You're never going to see him again. But you've been given an opportunity to see
because
what's underneath.
That discomfort is the distortion to peace.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like every time we do any of these different modalities and breath work or anything like that, I find it's a way that I'm trying to find clarity and get back to my center and where my peace is at. And when things happen, that's just a distortion in that piece, right? So we have to use our tools and our tool belt to try to bring us back to a place of center. And
what are your favorite tools?
My favorite tools? Well, breath, you know, my breath work, and especially recently, you know, diving into trying to get certified with Awaken Breathwork and trying to, you know, learn much more about that creative and healing modality. It's opened up and expanded more knowledge into how I breathe and how we breathe and how, even just for myself, how I'm affected just by breathing through my nose or through my mouth and how that affects my mood. And being, you know, having a deviated septum where I've been forced to breathe through my mouth my whole life, and now realizing that's why I'm always activated, and it's created different tools for myself. So now it's just, you know, well, some people may feel triggered just because I go, people think, oh, he's annoyed right now. Really, that's what I'm trying to do is I'm consciously trying to activate my parasympathetic breath and calm myself down.
Yeah. You might be triggering them.
But I'm triggering
with
them.
your breathing.
Yeah, which is
because their dad did it whenever they were
that's the irony.
Pissed, you know.
Because that's actually happened to me recently. So that's why it's like I'm trying to take conscious control of my breath, and I think that's one of my favorite tools to do right now
Hmm.
is take conscious control of my breath and breathe through my nose and activate that parasympathetic breath and calm myself, which I have never been able to do until recently. And now that I'm aware of it, now I'm able to calm down. So that's one thing. And I think
That's, yeah.
the other thing is while there can be negative triggers that are emotional and anger and all those things, I think that movie with Jonah Hill and Stutz, they brought up something that really I thought was so creative, which was you can create positive triggers, which
Mm.
is when every time what I've tried to, and this is something that he used specifically, was every time you walk into a doorway, create a positive trigger. And for me, that is just doing a mental cleansing, like a self check, just like we do when we're doing breath awareness. We're just tapping into how I'm feeling. Am I breathing through my mouth? If I'm breathing through my nose, am I activated? Am I calm? And just anytime I walk through a doorway, I just self check myself, you know, before I walk in, so that I know if I'm triggered, or I know when I'm walking into a room what state I'm at, and that helps me to better manage the situation that I'm coming into.
I like that. You're coming in aware.
Yeah.
The one of the other practices that made me think of is it was suggested that when you wake up, right
Mm,
before you reach for your phone, before you get out of bed,
mm,
is that you actually start to bring some breath awareness
mm-hmm.
to your body and you do a body scan.
Well, we'll talk a little, because I think not everybody knows what breath awareness is. So just like give a brief
I
intro
mean,
into what that is.
for me, breath awareness is really like becoming, like connecting with your breath.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just like taking your focus and putting it on your breath, like hearing it, feeling it come in.
Without adjusting it or
Yeah, just naturally. And then
observing.
observing it going
Mm-hmm.
out. And oh, there it is. Like this is your co-passenger in life, is your
Mm-hmm.
breath, right?
Yeah.
And just become like connecting with it as a
Yeah.
partner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first part, is really just connecting with the breath.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's bringing awareness to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you do a body scan where you start at your feet
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, what are you noticing? My feet. I notice my feet. Is there anything there? Is there any? And doing a whole body scan all the way up the body and just noticing if there's somewhere that you're having pain. Is there somewhere that you feel contracted? Is there somewhere, anything's going on that it just feels like, out of resonance in some
Yeah.
way, or there's disharmonious. And realizing that that's there. Like, oh, you know what? My back kind of hurts. This is what's happening right now. Or I have a pain in my shoulder. And so bringing that awareness to it, so that when you get up and you start to go about your day, you're sort of already knowing how you're feeling and what's going on with you, right? Whether it's mentally, physically, whatever. So whatever interaction you're going into, you don't unknowingly start just getting really annoyed and irritated because you're having something going on in your body. Like most of us walk around, we're like, I didn't even know that hurt, but man, something's been bothering me and I'm just carrying it through the whole day.
Yeah.
So if you're interacting with me, I'm sort of already at an annoyed level
Mm-hmm.
or at an uncomfortable level. And so every reaction I have, or everything that's probably coming out of my mouth, or how you are receiving me, is probably not in the way that I would like, or that I'm aware of.
But if you have a baseline, if you've checked in with yourself,
Yeah.
you can
Where's
be more
my
clear.
baseline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
you're
what
able,
can I do?
well, part of it is probably communicating to those around you,
Mhm.
telling your micro truths, hey, I'm a little
off today.
I'm a little off today. I'm feeling a little sensitive. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I've got this pain right here. I'm not sure what's going
Mhm.
on. And just really, making, you're right, people around you aware of what's going on with you and that you're aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
and not letting it be an undercurrent to your day that is completely unconscious,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Because if you can figure out where your baseline is, you can make better choices
Yeah.
on how you handle things. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
I like it. So positive trigger could be when you walk into a door, you start to connect with your breath, check in with yourself. Where am I at? Or when you're getting up in the morning, how do I feel? I'm connected to my breath. What's going on with me? How do I feel physically? How do I feel mentally?
Mm-hmm.
And just bringing awareness to where your baseline is at for the day,
Yeah.
I think is a great way to
Because then you're better able to gauge how you're being interpreted or received,
Mhm.
right? Because from everything that been listening to and reading, it's like 90% of your communication is through your energy, your body, your outward, just how people receive you. It's not always about your words and how you're able to articulate or not articulate, right?
Oh,
Because
no.
I can have all the right words, but say with all the bad body language, and it would be received in all the wrong ways.
Oh, we can feel each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've all walked into a room.
Mm.
We didn't hear anything that was going on, but you can walk in and be like, whoa, it's thick in here.
Mm.
You know, it is something's going on and nobody said anything. But it's the energy of the people in the room. It's the energy of what's going on. And, you know, just, I think it goes back to that really cultivating the observer. So if you're checking in with yourself and using your breath to do that, then you are coming into awareness, you know, and it also starts to strengthen that muscle of observance and of non-attachment. So I think that those are, you know, great tools. One is just noticing when something's happening in the moment and allowing yourself to really kind of feel that in your body, and then, you know, becoming aware of it, allowing it to be there, but then just asking, what is this about?
Yeah, and I think the other side of that, because we have to have some sort of contrast, is that we have to also then take into consideration the opposite viewpoint. That other person is also experiencing and has their own thoughts, wants, and needs and feelings about how they perceive things. So no matter how we're interpreting things, we also have to have some grace and compassion for the other individual, because they're not watching the same movie that we're watching, or they may, quite frankly, not be, you know, as sensitive to things that we are, or even aware that they're affecting us, because they may be on a slightly different path or level of awareness where they don't even understand what they're doing or what they're saying is affecting us. So
Yeah.
I think the balance in that is like, yeah, we have to walk around and try to be more self-aware, but that doesn't mean other people, there's no reciprocity in that.
Yeah.
And it's not always equal, which is sometimes where
Triggering.
the triggering comes in, and it feels like solitude, and, you know, leads to more self-growth and that kind of thing. I think just being triggered, like you said, is a treasure. And it really has given me opportunity to step back and think, like, what is, like, I can keep repeating the same old patterns of reacting and feeding, you know, bad energy and a bad cycle of a relationship, or I can finally be called forward, you know, and step into a place of self-awareness, where
Self-empowerment.
where I don't give the other people the power to affect me in such a way.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of those is just not allowing things to be multiplied,
Yeah.
you know, because that's giving way too much power, and truly is an admittance that you have not dealt with previous
Hurts.
you know, things that have happened.
Well, what I think is really powerful about even, you know, one person coming into an awareness state, an observer state, is it builds compassion for the other people you're interacting with, because you start to see, you know, them in their inability to do the same thing. So, you know, it becomes like, oh, I can see how they're very upset, or something has really gotten to them. And you start to be able to even observe those interactions that are not happening for you, but have compassion that it is happening for them, and coming from an understanding of like what's going on. And maybe your ability to stay neutral becomes the invitation for them to seek out that practice for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, one of you has to go first and be the invitation for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels pretty true.
Yeah.
Because it's an invitation, like you said, calling somebody out and calling somebody forward are two
Very
different
different.
things. Yeah. And I think, you know, calling yourself forward first is probably one of the most key steps into like the self-awareness part, because it's so easy to stay in the mode of victim and all the bad things that have happened to me and all that stuff. It's a very comfortable place. And to seek it, you know, to seek comfort from other people and all those things. And it's very coddling and feels great, the nurturing part, but there's also a component of enabling there. And I think as adults, we have to sooner or later take the mantle and really stand up for ourselves, and not, you know, ask other people to do that for us, or to be responsible for our feelings. we have to own our feelings and at the same time understand that other people have their own too.
Yeah.
You know, and
We can only be responsible for our own self-regulation.
yeah,
And so, but that may provide the space for someone else to access their own,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, because it really is just about pivoting, understanding that each other are not the problem in a conflict with any relationship. It's it's um, the problem is the problem, and each other is not the problem. So pivoting, coming together to find unity and trying to find compassion for each other and each other's struggles. You know, I think if one person can do that, that makes it a lot easier for another person to find
Yeah.
a safe place
For anyone around
to
them
navigate in
to do
that.
that
Yeah,
as well. Yeah.
because when you're in an environment where people are constantly triggered, it's
Yeah. It's just
hard to
pinging
find.
off all day,
Mm,
pinging, 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 plucking each other's
mm,
guitar strings that are out of tune.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what would be? Is there something for you like as a tool that you use to self-regulate or
I think the biggest tool that has been the other, besides breath awareness, it has been meditation.
mm,
And I know that's something that, everybody kind of throws around like, you need to meditate. And honestly, until I understood what was happening with meditation, what really the goal of what I believe for meditation is for me, is cultivating the observer within myself.
mm,
And, meditation has been like a place and a time where I commit to noticing my thoughts
mm-hmm,
and trying to find like a blissful state regardless of what thoughts are going on. And
mm-hmm,
then realizing like I'm not my thoughts, because if I can observe my thoughts, then I can't possibly be the thing I'm observing.
mm,
So there creates this distance in this space.
mm-hmm,
So the more that I'm able to go into meditation, whether it's really, short in the morning, short in the evening, whenever I can, it just starts to strengthen and this muscle of observance, and allows me the space to, when I am going into a situation where I could be triggered, quote
mm-hmm,
unquote, that I can pretty quickly shift into like, oh, look what's happening.
mm-hmm,
Because it's just like when I'm in meditation and thoughts are coming
mm-hmm,
and I choose not to react to them, I just choose to see them and let them go, that it cultivates that observer state.
mm,
So then when I'm in everyday life, then the thoughts, or the triggers or the happenings,
mm-hmm,
I know that I'm not those things.
mm-hmm,
And then I can kind of take a breath, find the space, and then choose a response.
mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that every time I've been great at this. Like there are times I still go into like really being,
Yeah.
you know, um, upset, but quickly I can shift to like, oh, I noticed something's going on in my body. That's my cue
Mm-hmm.
that there's a lesson here.
Yeah.
And the quicker I can access that and get curious about it and excavate it, then the quicker I'm released.
Yeah.
And the less that situation, when it comes up again, is going to ignite anything in me.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, meditation has been something that's so powerful, so simple,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, very hard, because we don't realize how much of our day, of our lives, are controlled by thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from the time you wake up, it's, what am I going to wear today? Well, what's the weather? Well, what kind of shoes am I going to wear? These are all thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But then we just start to just follow them all day long.
Yeah.
But when you can kind of cultivate that space within yourself, that you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness behind your thoughts, then it changes your relationship to your reality.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think meditation has been one of the key things. And combining meditation with breath,
Mm-hmm.
Even a simple breath work session of a few minutes
Mm-hmm.
before meditation, game changer.
Yeah.
Big game changer.
So I think, like, to bring it full circle, I think really trying to get to a position of neutrality and finding ways to become the observer.
Mm-hmm.
It almost sounds kind of around the same.
Yeah.
And for both of us, we kind of use a little bit different methods, but ultimately we're trying to find that same, get rid of the distortion and find that peace, that vision to it. And yeah, I think it's just something that nobody's perfect, and we're going through it every day, trying to learn
Daily
it.
practice.
Yeah, it's a daily practice, trying to shift into awareness and be very conscious of what we do and how we affect other people, and
Yeah, definitely.
how we let other people affect us, and what power we give them.
Yeah,
You know?
giving it away.
Yeah.
And I think the neutral place is checking in with your body. You'll know when you're neutral when you tune in and be like, what am I feeling? It's kind of like your antenna, your barometer. So
checking in
Check in
early
with
and
your
often when you
body.
wake up in the morning.
yeah,
Do your self-check, kind of like you said, and where am I feeling from,
yeah,
toe to head, and then some sort of meditation, whether it be breath work or just,
combination of.
yeah, trying to find some stillness so you can,
Yeah.
see your reflection, see what's going on within you,
Yeah.
so you can make better choices.
Yep. I love it.
All right, well, this has been another episode of Let That Shift Go. I'm Noel,
I'm Lena.
and we just want to thank you for tuning in and listening, and can't wait to talk to you on the next time.